I'm Dick Herlin. These are stories that I call my honesty stories. So they talk a lot about honesty around here. In fact, that word shows up 3 times on one page in the section that they read at every meeting. And the strongest, talking about people who cannot get this program. It says they are constitutionally incapable of developing a manner of living that demands rigorous honesty. Rigorous honesty? If you asked me, I would have said I was about as honest as the next guy. Well, actually, I just wanted you to think I was honest. Unfortunately, like so many things around here, about as honest as the next guy is not enough to keep me sober. I had no idea what real honesty was or why you would worry about something like that. So all I have learned about honesty, I learned here from you, from these rooms, mostly from my sponsor, Fred. I have a couple stories that together show my very slow development as an honest person. The first is what I like to call my baby motorcycle story. I was about a year sober, not a long time, long enough to know what it felt like to be sober, but not so long that I had forgotten the feeling of craving. I was driving home from a meeting one night, looking forward to a good night's sleep. I turned into the driveway of my apartment building, crossing over the sidewalk, and bam, I got broadsided on the passenger door. But I'm in my own driveway. What hit me? I don't see anything. I look out the window, and there's this guy laying on the sidewalk next to his small motorcycle, you know, the kind that you aren't supposed to take on the freeway. And this guy is steamed at me. He said it was my fault. Yes, he admitted that he had been riding his motorcycle down the sidewalk. But as he said, he needed to get out of the street because his lights were not working. And yes, he had been going pretty fast, but he said because he was in a hurry to get home. And did I mention that he was also drunk? Very. And from the smell, I would guess that had he been given a breathalyzer, he would have scored somewhere in the high heroic range. And no, he didn't have any insurance to exchange. And no, he didn't have any license to exchange either. I don't think he even had a green card, but still, it was my fault. Anyway, because as he said so eloquently, you don't got no goddamn turning signal on. Actually, I did. It was still blinking as we talked. So much for the turning signal defense. But, and there's always a but, I had been working on my car that afternoon, on the brakes, as a matter of fact, and I had somehow disconnected the brake lights and didn't have time to fix that before the meeting. And it occurred to me just for a brief moment that this might have been part of what confused this bozo, but then I thought, no, it wouldn't have made any difference, not how drunk he was. Even then, he was staggering down the street, pushing his motorcycle home. At that point, I called my insurance company. You did that then. I reported the accident, telling them all the important details, how this drunk and uninsured, unlicensed speed demon viciously drove into the side of my car on a motorcycle, on the sidewalk, no lights. As I recall, I omitted any mention of my brake lights because, of course, they had no bearing on anything, not in the light of his multiple misdemeanors, for God's sake. Now, I'm not exactly sure when the desire to drink started, but it did. Oh, yeah. And since I had been free of the obsession to drink for over a year, I noticed. I sure noticed. I called a couple of AAs. When I told these men the lurid circumstances, him recklessly splattering against the side of my nice car, driving his motorcycle on the sidewalk, no lights, no insurance, drunk as a skunk, they all agreed that he was an awful person and that I was a prince to not have had him arrested right on the spot. And still, the desire to drink wouldn't go away. So the next day, I went to my regular meeting. My sponsor, Fred, was there. Now, why I hadn't called him in the first place, I'm not sure, but I told him the story. Getting pretty damn good at telling the story. This drunken fiend comes racing out of the darkness, virtually invisible, no lights, blind drunk, no license, no insurance. And yes, I told Fred about the lunatic accusing me of not signaling, and I told him I did, in fact, signal. And I also mentioned, you know, about the brake light thing and how that might have played a tiny part in this lunatic's confusion. And I also told him about the desire to drink. You're supposed to tell your sponsor that sort of thing. And Fred asked if I had put the information about the brake lights in the accident report. I said, no. I said that was a little bit dishonest, but not really because it wasn't important, not in the light of what this motorcycle menace had done. Fred paused for a moment. He said, well, if being a little bit dishonest is bothering you enough to make you want to drink, why don't you try telling the truth? Well, there's an idea. I even asked him to repeat it. If not being honest is bothering me, why don't I try telling the truth? So I did. I called the insurance company, revised the accident report, told the truth, and I can't remember, but I don't think it changed anything, except that I had learned my first lesson in honesty, or rather dishonesty. It bothers me. And when I'm bothered and I can't get unbothered, I will want to drink. I have never seen a bother that wasn't soluble in alcohol. I also learned why they put the word rigorous in front of the word honesty. They put it there for people like me.